VS Code Day 2022, TypeScript 4.6, and a version of Wordle that actually runs on Windows 3.1. What? All that and more this week on The Download. Welcome back to another episode of The Download. I'm your host, Christina Warren, Senior Cloud Advocate at Microsoft, and we took last week off because of the events that are happening around the world. I'm not going to say much more about that, except that I stand with and support the people of Ukraine. Okay, you know what? There is no easy way to segue from that, but my hoodie this week is vintage Off-White. That is a fashion label to the people out there. I'm also wearing Off-White Jordans too. They rule. This is all in tribute to Virgil Abloh, whose final Off-White fashion show was at Paris Fashion Week this week. Okay, enough about that. Let's get into this week's latest developer news. Heads up, some of this was from the last 2 weeks, so we got a little bit of a mixture of everything. All right, so first up, the second annual, see, I got it right this time, the second annual VS Code Day took place on March 3rd, 2022. And it was 90 minutes jam-packed with lightning talks about stuff like dev containers and VS Code for the web, aka vscode.dev. And there was a really awesome talk from the creator of one of my favorite apps, which is called Blink Shell. And it's a pro terminal app for iOS that now integrates with VS Code for the web, as well as GitHub Codespaces. It's very cool. I've used it for years. Great talks. The links to the event and all the various talks are in the show notes and the description, so be sure to check those out. And speaking of VS Code, the February 2022 release 1.65 is now available, and you can read all the details on the VS Code blog, which I've linked down below, naturally. And some of the highlights from this release are that there is now a new editor history navigation. There are some light, high contrast themes, which is really good for editor visibility. There's now the ability to drag and drop problems and search results, and there is some improved diff editor management when using Git. So there are also some updates to VS Code for the web. Be sure to check that out and go ahead and update everyone's favorite editor. Well, my favorite editor, anyway. Speaking about some of the new features in VS Code 1.65, one of them is that it is now shipping with TypeScript 4.6. And this is great because TypeScript 4.6 was released earlier this week. And I've got a link in the show notes to a blog post that outlines all the changes. But I will point out that there are a couple of breaking changes in 4.6. So they're mostly edge cases, but still be sure to check out the documentation before you update. All right, moving right along, a new preview release of PyTorch-DirectML dropped this week or last week, and this is actually a hardware-accelerated backend for training PyTorch models on any DirectX 12 GPU on Windows, as well as, my favorite thing, the Windows subsystem for Linux. And PyTorch-DirectML now works with Python 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8, and there is a new public operator roadmap, which indicates, current and planned future support for various PyTorch operators. There are also updated samples available on GitHub. There's a video that is embedded in that blog post that I've got linked that shows you how to get started. Very cool stuff, especially if you're wanting to get started with machine learning things. I love it. Next up, last episode, I was really excited about Sexy Notepad. Notably, not all of you agreed. But I stand by my assertion that the new Notepad app in Windows 11 is indeed sexy. But what's actually even sexier was reading about RichEdit, which the new Windows 11 Notepad update uses as its backend, and that's what powers some of the editing enhancements. And over on the Math and Office blog, Murray actually details how all of this works. And because Notepad is now decoupled from the operating system, and because it uses RichEdit, that means that even more additions could potentially come out in the future, which Murray outlines in his blog post too, and he's asking for suggestions from the community. So if you, like me, would like to see stuff like syntax highlighting in Notepad, let Murray know in the comments on his blog. Good stuff. Keep making Notepad sexy. Love it. So security is really, really important, especially when it comes to open source projects. And a big part of having improved security is education. Letting people know about vulnerabilities and software dependencies and allowing them to share information that they know with others, because that's how we all get better. So to that end, the GitHub Advisory Database, which is the largest database of vulnerabilities in software dependencies in the world, it is now open to community contributions. And this database is what powers the security and audit experiences for NPM, for NuGet, and for GitHub's own Dependabot. And GitHub has actually published the full contents of the advisory database in a new public repository, and there's actually a new UI for making contributions, which is really great. Knowledge is power, and the GitHub team is hoping that by making it easier to contribute and consume this information from the database, it'll help security across all software. I really like it. This is really good stuff. Details, as always, are in the show notes. Everything is linked down below. All right, speaking of GitHub, GitHub Actions are a really great way of being able to test and deploy and build your code. And I wanted to give a pointer to a new tutorial for getting started with .NET and GitHub Actions that David posted this week. It's really good. It's really geared towards people who might be looking at how they can get started with automating some of their common .NET dev scenarios. As I said, building and testing and deploying code directly from their Git repo. So I've got a link to that. Really great job, David. And now it is time for my pick of the week. Okay, so I didn't plan on sharing more Wordle picks because even though I'm still utterly obsessed with it, like I wake up at midnight every day and I play it very first thing, I was kind of worried. I was like, is it played out? I don't know. But then I saw this project courtesy of my friend Ars Technica's Andrew Cunningham, and I had to share it because it's so cool. Okay, so someone created a version of Wordle that runs on Windows 3.1 and Windows 95 or 98. It's called Windle, and it was designed to look like it fits right in with the classic Microsoft entertainment pack of yore, the stuff like Chips Challenge, and there's like the Pipes game, and I think there's a Snake game and other stuff, the ski game. Anyway, the 16-bit version, which runs on Windows 3.1, was actually developed in Delphi 1 on a Gateway 4DX266 running Windows 3.11 for workgroups. Talk about commitment to a bit. I love it. And the 32-bit version, which can run on modern 64-bit machines, albeit it's not going to look as cool, but it'll still look really great on Windows 95 or Windows 98. And the 32-bit version was actually compiled on Delphi 2 on Windows 98 SE. So shout out to dialup.net, which great URL by the way, for creating this very 90s content that is completely my jam. I love it. The fact that this was written in Delphi 1 at that, so cool. All right, so you can check it out yourself in the links down below. And let me know in the comments what your favorite game from the Microsoft Entertainment Pack was. I do think that mine was Chips Challenge, but I'm open to feedback and I'd love to know what you think. So let me know in the comments down below, and also give me your thoughts on any of the other stories that we discussed this week. That does it for me. If you liked this episode, go ahead and give us a like on this video and subscribe to Microsoft Developer for all your nerd needs. See you next time.